Week 2 fantasy football saw a ton of craziness going on, and we have 10 players that are skyrocketing up our rest of season rankings. Kicking it off, Danny, you have Tucker Kraft, who on Thursday night probably his breakout performance.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that I drafted in the Flock League, and you'll remember throughout the offseason, my thoughts on Tucker Kraft were, okay, the usage isn't there yet, but the talent is. I said coming into the year, he was my tight end 8 coming in. The consensus more so had him in that tight end 12, tight end 13 range. I said that if he does get the volume uptick going into 2025, he's poised for that George Kittle-like breakout. And man, like he already looks like George Kittle. I don't know if it's the 85 on the chest. I don't know if it's the tattoos on his arm, the arm sleeve he's got rocking, but that guy is a bull in a china shop in the yak game. The way he's operated as a 3-level threat for this Packers offense has been key. And again, like we want to bet on elite talent tight ends taking that next step in their usage. The usage so far in 2025, 21% target share, 40% of the Packers end zone targets. And now we get the news on Thursday Night Football that Jayden Reed, he's going to be out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Jayden Reed, with that shoulder injury coming down on that end zone attempt, is going to be out for the next 2 to 3 months. So when we're talking about Tucker Kraft, he's got the opportunity to operate as the number one target in an offense we like going forward with Green Bay. On top of that, we haven't even really seen Green Bay air it out. In the games that Jordan Love has to throw the ball 35, 40 times, shootout type of game environments, what is the weekly ceiling for Tucker Kraft?
It's high, man. He's already been the number one in terms of target share. And if you go back to last year, and only 3 tight ends had a higher route participation than Tucker Kraft when he played. Yeah. So he had the routes last year because only McBride, Cade Otton, and Travis Kelce ran more percentage of their team's routes. The difference was targets. And with Reed not really in the fold right now, Matthew Golden's kind of taken some time to get acclimated to the NFL. Romeo Doubs is fine, but he's not going to be more than a 15 to 18% target share type of player. And Dontavian Wicks kind of, is unreliable. So with Kraft and with Reed out of the picture and Golden kind of taking a step in the right direction, but not there yet, Kraft is going to have a nice window here for the next 4 or 5 weeks while Golden is still getting acclimated, where he can produce pretty much just one level below the top tight ends in fantasy.
Well, that's the thing, too. He's up to my tight end 3. He is the top of my second tier. Tier 1, of course, being Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. And I don't think that's too high at all, because I think talent-wise, we could even be talking about him as part of that tier, given the fact that Tucker Kraft, man, 92% of the snaps, the next closest player on the Green Bay Packers, 72% in that receiving room. This is still a rotational basis at wide receiver, but Tucker Kraft is the every down player of this offense.
Yeah, the only difference for me is that I do prefer Tyler Warren to Tucker Kraft, and I also still have Sam Laporta above both of them, just because Laporta had a little bit of an injury scare this week, but it does look like he's going to be just fine. And in week 1, he had like a 22% target share. Of course, we saw the Lions as an offense look so much better in week 2 against the Bears. So I think that Sam Laporta and Warren and Kraft would all be like in a tier for me. And I do have Kraft at the end of that tier, tight end 5, but no doubt, absolutely on the rise, given the Jayden Reed injury and all that kind of stuff. And just a fair warning, this video is going to be a little victory lappy, but here's the thing. A lot of these guys were guys that we liked. So it's good that they're skyrocketing up our rankings even more, because it looks like we were onto something with some of these players. Unless you have anything else on Kraft, I could probably move on to the next guy here.
You can move on to the next guy. I think people in the audience probably drafted a ton of Tucker Kraft given our takes this offseason. And guess what? It feels nice when you hit on a tight end advantage in round 10, round 11 of your drafts.
Yeah, he's my highest. So not my highest roster tight end percentage wise, but in terms of entry fees on Underdog, he's actually my highest entry fee tight end in best ball. So I feel really good about Kraft having a breakout as well. I got to beat my chest a little bit here. Zay Flowers, man. Zay friggin' Flowers, wide receiver 21 before this week, which was already above market. People asked last week, why wasn't Zay Flowers on this video? It's like, well, because I already had him well above market, but I've moved him up even more since then. 43% target share this season. 43%. 50% of the targets in week 1, 39% of the targets in week 2. Here's the difference, man. And the reason I feel so great about the Zay Flowers take that I had before the season is because it's playing out exactly how I said it would, which is that Flowers is just playing better. He's just a much better player. He's getting upfield on his yak plays. He's getting open consistently. His 2 to 3 design jet sweeps and screen passes every single game are giving him a nice floor. And Lamar, the concern you had was that Lamar wasn't going to throw the ball, and he's only thrown 29 and 19 times the past 2 games. And yet still, Lamar is an absolute monster, and Flowers has been his guy. Andrews looks washed. Hopkins is making some plays here and there, but Bateman hasn't really been a major factor. And Isaiah Likely, even once he comes back, is coming off of surgery. We can't expect him to be too great. With Flowers getting plus, 15 fantasy points in both of the first 2 games and getting 10 or more targets in both of those games, you feel so good about what he can be going forward.
Hey, Bush, you're so biased, though. Wide receiver 13. No, I'm kidding. I got him at wide receiver 15 rest of the season. Like you said, I think the main thing is Lamar looks like the best player in the world right now, and Mark Andrews looks washed. Not to mention, like you said, Zay Flowers taking his game to the next level has definitely been a big talking point for me. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in week 2, with the Ravens putting up 41 points, yeah, Zay Flowers didn't score in that game, sure. But guess what? He had 11 targets. The next closest Raven had 4. It's very clear in the passing game that they want to funnel the attack through Zay Flowers, and I'm willing to take this one on the chin here. I thought, given the context of the offense, given the touchdown equity that Mark Andrews has, I didn't really see Zay Flowers taking this step. But, I mean, this is very, very real, guys. If you were pessimistic on Zay Flowers coming into the year and you were questioning what the bottom line ceiling is, you have to re-envision what your take is on him, because a 43% target share, it's clear they want to funnel him targets. It's clear they view him as the clear alpha of this offense. And, I mean, he's playing damn well.
Yeah, and before the bye, they have a bye in week 7. The next 4 games, let's do some over-under projecting on these games. Detroit this week, Kansas City the week after that, Houston the week after that, Los Angeles Rams the week after that. Like, these are going to be 50-plus point over-under games, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, when the Ravens are going to be implied for 27, 28 every week, I mean, you're going to have game environments that you like for Zay Flowers.
Absolutely. So moving into your skyrocketing number 2, another guy on a very good offense that you're eating crow on again, actually, because I was a lot higher on this player than you were, but both of us can agree that James Cook has to be on the rise.
Yeah, up from RB14 to RB10. I took the lead, man. James Cook looks absolutely phenomenal. I'll eat my crow, like you said. I had pessimism on James Cook coming in this offseason. Thought the volume could be an issue. Obviously, last year, very touchdown reliant. Didn't get a ton of volume. And I thought maybe a guy like Ray Davis, second year in the system, could pose more of a threat to his volume. But so far through 2 weeks, man, he's been the workhorse back for one of the best offenses in the league. And it's simple as this, man. And I should have thought about this more in the draft season. But at the end of the day, you get a very good player in a very good situation. And that just tends to pay off. I should have valued him more coming into the season. I mean, he's looked phenomenal. 40 touches in the last 2 games for James Cook, and the Bills have scored 30-plus in both those contests. So going forward, if you're getting the workhorse back for a team that can score 30, 35 points on any given week, and he's actually a good player that James Cook is, yeah, I'm going to have to take my crow. He's a clear RB1 rest of the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. James Cook was a guy that once he got signed, I was like, oh, I'm ready, dude. I'm moving him to the 3-4 turn. I'm taking him all the time, because once they gave him that kind of shot of confidence, I really did expect that the snaps would increase about 10, 15% per game. The receiving touches would increase. We know what James Cook was last year, which was a big play and a touchdown machine. But when you also get a little bit added floor in terms of the amount of touches he's getting per game, that's what makes him kind of, even a higher ceiling than what he had last year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If he continues this and he has this type of, 18, 20 plus opportunity per game role on top of the goal line autonomy he has in this offense. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's not like he's just confined to scoring within the 5-yard line. James Cook is the type of player. The Bills have the type of offensive line. You're going to see 35-yard touchdowns, 43-yard touchdowns, 56-yard touchdowns.
He made 8 people miss on that run. Like, legitimately. Like the whole run. Like, that was an insane run. That 40-yard touchdown that he had was insane.
Like, in all seriousness, again, I have him at RB10. I'm assuming you have him probably around that as well. I mean, we could be talking about within a few weeks, if this workload continues, he's like the RB6 going forward.
Yeah, I have him at 9. I actually moved him ahead of Ashton Genty rest of season. And spicy. It's not that I think Ashton Genty's not a great potential, because I don't, we're recording this Monday morning. I don't think that Genty's going to have a great game against the Chargers defense tonight. So that's partially why I think on the open market, James Cook would be worth a little bit more. But it's not that I don't like Genty. I just think that James Cook has to be in the same territory as the Devon Achane, Bucky Irvings. And unfortunately, Chase Brown would have been in this territory, but now with the Joe Burrow injury, he's probably not. We'll talk about guys that we're worried about, time to panic. We want to do that video last week, but we thought it might be a little bit better this week when we have more information. You kind of ate crow a little bit on Flowers and James Cook back to back. I was lower on Davante Adams than you were coming into the season. It's not because I didn't think Davante Adams played well at the end of the season with the Jets and all that kind of stuff. I was just worried that some of the advanced metrics may have shown a little bit of signs of decline, and I didn't see any declining player on Sunday, man. Holy crap, did he look great. Tons of juice. Stafford and him had a great connection, especially in the red zone. I believe among all week 2 wide receivers, he led the position in expected fantasy points per per game in terms of like the end zone targets he was getting, the downfield looks. With him and Puka, man, they're just so interchangeably dominant at what they do that it's so hard to defend both of them. And it's always going to give this offense a chance. Not to mention, too, similar to what I just said about Flowers, next 4 games, Philly, Colts, 49ers, Ravens. If Brock Purdy is back for that 49ers game, we're talking about, again, a bunch of high-scoring game environments.
In the grand scheme of things, Matthew Stafford looks healthy. You trust Sean McVay, and you're getting 2 wide receivers on one of the most concentrated target situations in the league.
Yeah, no, it's really tough to think that, like, I get some people's brains can't comprehend, because mine is like this too. Because you go, okay, high target share, number 1, probably outweighs a number 2 receiver in most situations. But, okay, are you really going to seriously be like, oh, I know Tyreek Hill's the number 1 in Miami, but like, don't you rather want to watch the Rams offense every week? Like, that's where I'm at with it, even though he's the number 2 and Puka's like literally my wide receiver 2 rest of the season with the Jamar Chase kind of bump down from Joe Burrow. Like, you got to feel so good about Davante Adams on every given week, being projected for 15 plus fantasy points, having a chance at a touchdown. The way that Stafford looks too, he looks healthy. He looks like he can sling it. And Puka and Adams are going to be
the Rams are a problem right now too. Like the Rams,
the team is going to be a problem. Their front on defense is a problem, and the offense is passing wise is a problem too.
So this is another like stat that I saw. Again, I will check what it looked like in week 2, but in week 1, the presence of Adams alone saw Puka in the slot on 65% of his snaps. Again, I'm curious what the data looks like in week 2. I'm assuming, though, having the presence of a guy like Davante Adams is also what's opening up Puka Nacua, because there's a big difference between playing with a slot merchant wide receiver like Cooper Kupp versus a true X-talented wide receiver like Davante Adams that can free you.
Yeah, no, it's a big difference, especially when Adams is capable of winning, not only taking away number 1 shadow coverage, but also winning against it is pretty impressive. So Adams, as far as I'm concerned, I was kind of dead wrong on the fact that I thought he might lose a step this year. I was very in on Puka, and I absolutely packed the crap out of the bags on that, and I feel good about it. But yeah, Adams has to be this. This could be, every year we got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. We get Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. This, to me, projects as the most likely duo of receivers to both be wide receiver 1s in fantasy.
Yeah, no, I agree. But going on to my third player skyrocketing, and it's a guy that actually made his NFL debut in week 2, man. And he didn't skip a beat. Quinshon Judkins, running back of the Cleveland Browns, up from RB36. There is still some concerns that I have that the NFL might suspend him, 2 to 4 games. Again, we'll see what ends up happening here. But for the meantime, he rose all the way up to my RB25. And I thought that with how Dylan Sampson looked in week 1, Judkins missing the time he did, we'd see it be a 2-headed backfield between Judkins and Sampson moving forward. But Judkins was clearly the lead back. Like, we could talk about the overall usage. Yeah, sure, Jerome Ford actually led the team in overall snaps. But you have to look at the touch concentration of this backfield. Judkins played 19 snaps, Corey. You know how many opportunities he had on those 19 snaps?
Well, I watched this game very in depth because I have the Ravens onslaught in the Flock League. So I watched this game. It was on a full monitor. I was paying a lot of attention to it. And I can also tell you that the snap counts of this game, 19 snaps for Judkins, 18 snaps for
Ford was all
Sampson.
garbage time.
Exactly. Jerome Ford had 35 snaps, but when the game was close, it was Judkins. And he also, like you said, had 10 carries, 3 targets, got the touches when the game mattered still.
13 opportunities and 19 snaps. Like, that touch concentration. When Judkins was on the field, the Ravens knew he was going to get the ball. The Browns knew he was going to get the ball. And he still got the ball, and he was still efficient. So really what it comes down to for me is, yes, sure, Jerome Ford, he might be an immediate pest in these next couple of weeks. But in the grand scheme of things, I think this is going to end up being, the 2 young running backs, 70-30, 65-35 level split in Judkins' favor. And again, we'll see how hard the NFL comes down if they do with a suspension. But with the time going forward, man, this is a top 40 draft pick on a team that wants to use him as a workhorse.
Yeah, again, I'm still not going to I'm about halfway in between where you had him before and where you have him now, because I'm still kind of pessimistic that he'll get suspended at some point. I think if we don't hear anything this week, though, I will say, if we don't hear anything this week on Judkins getting suspended or whatever, it's potentially not going to come until next season. If I had to guess, because they've met with him, they probably have a lot of facts on the case, facts on the information there. So I think if it was going to happen, he wouldn't have seen the NFL field, to be honest with you. They would have suspended him before he played a game or something like that. So if it doesn't happen this week, I would say that's probably positive news for people who drafted Quinshon Judkins. And obviously as somebody who was adamantly taking the discount, especially on Underdog, him missing 1 game, would be nutted for what we were getting. Like by the end of the offseason, you were taking this guy in the 13th, 14th round of Underdog Best Ball Mania 6 drafts where all the money is in week 17 anyways.
So I've seen him fall to like the 180s in some points, like in the offseason, which
I got him at 165 in a Great Dane draft.
Which goes to show you, man, like at the end of the day here, people might say, well, how are you hyping up a Browns running back? They just lost 41-17. It's like, look, guess what? Even in the context of it being a bad offense, top 40 picks with this type of projectable workload simply do not fail. We can look at the hit rates. I've talked about it all offseason, but the Judkins profile is one that you want to bet on every time when it's cheap as the RB25, the RB28 in relatable cost.
Yeah, no, especially when, relative to cost, people don't view him as really anything with a lot of a ceiling, but he has a 3-down skill set and he was an exceptional prospect. And that's why he was taking top 40. He's a great athlete, all that kind of stuff. So, Judkins definitely has to be on the rise, especially if you just were stashing him on your bench. You definitely feel a lot better of an asset that you have on your hands now. Chris Olave, kind of a sneaky one here because I don't think anybody would look at Chris Olave's game and be like, oh, huge riser. But wide receiver 41 was where he was at in my rankings coming into the week. Wide receiver 33 in my rankings now. And to me, he's going to be kind of like a buy low nature of fantasy because even though he hasn't been sexy, 10 and 13 targets the last 2 weeks, Rattler quietly ripped off a 73.5% completion game. 207 yards, 3 touchdowns. The biggest concern for Olave was quarterback play. It was 100% how good or how dreadful was this quarterback core going to be of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck. I know it seems like a dumpster fire offense, but Kellen Moore actually is getting a decent amount of production out of this young quarterback, and it bodes really well for their best wide receiver. Get him now while the production still seems pedestrian, because I think that this offense could be functional, and I think that Rattler low-key has a little bit of like 2023 Sam Howell appeal to him where he can still get the ball to the guys that need to get the ball, even if the team is going to finish with a top 5 to 10 pick.
Well, that's the thing. And it's funny because we were always on the Rattler over Shuck train. Obviously, when the opportunity kind of looked like it was favoring Shuck, we were like, okay, maybe you take like the investment, quote unquote, because that's kind of what the market was dictating. But when the Saints drafted Tyler Shuck, what did we say on that draft stream? Is he even better than Spencer Rattler?
I tweeted a few months after the draft, when Derek Carr retired, I tweeted that Spencer Rattler was better than Tyler Shuck. And obviously, it's like a battle of mid, like who gives a shit. But generally, a lot of people pushed back and they were like, oh, dude, like they spent a 2nd round pick on Shuck. I'm like, I don't care. He's better than Tyler Shuck. And he actually looked functional. I'm not saying he's good.
No, but like
functional.
I would even go the step further. Like in the first couple games of the year, like a 65, 70% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 400 plus yards. It's like for the expectations we could have had on Spencer Rattler, he's definitely well performed above them.
Yeah, he's been fine. And to me, that's why I'm looking at a guy like Chris Olave is like, dude, 10 and 13 targets. The other thing, too, is the Saints are throwing a lot because their defense isn't good, and they're playing in a lot of games that are very high pace as well. So you're getting a lot of volume in general. Like, you give Chris Olave 10 targets every single week, he's going to have games where he catches bomb touchdowns. He's going to have games where he has 100-plus receiving yards and that kind of thing. So just the pure volume and the fact that Olave, I still believe, is a very good player, and if he was on a different team, we might have thought of him much higher from a fantasy lens. That's why I'm kind of in on potentially, and I literally did buy low on him from you last week. And part of it is, okay, yeah, I just bought on him, and that's why I'm kind of confirmation biasing my way into saying he's a buy low now. But I genuinely believe like this is a good option to go get, because the mid-range, like wide receiver 20 through 45 in drafts, feels like a lot of guys are busting. And I feel like Olave is one guy that's kind of been okay, but you can maybe get more out of.
Yeah, and again, full transparency in the context of that deal, the main reason for me was getting a Rasheed Rice. I actually have always had Olave at wide receiver 33. He hasn't budged for me. Again, maybe part of that too was he was on my team in week 1, so I saw the 13 targets, so I always had him high, and maybe like that kind of went under the radar. But I mean, the big plays are going to be coming. 54 yards in the last 2 games. We haven't really seen him be stretched across the field, but as we know with Kellen Moore, he is a slot kingmaker. Like we saw it in Dallas when he had CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was playing a lot in the slot. That was the CeeDee Lamb breakout year. And we saw, for example, when he went to LA, obviously Keenan Allen had that slot role. We saw last year in Philadelphia. Again, it was a little bit more evenly spread because the offense simply wasn't throwing the ball a ton. But we saw when Davante Smith was in the slot, he was actually a lot more efficient than when he was on the outside. So it goes to show you that in the context of a Kellen Moore offense, if you can get this slot role, we're feeling great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this next one's a pretty easy riser just based on what happened. But even before Aaron Jones goes down with a hamstring injury on Sunday Night Football. Jordan Mason had to be somebody that you felt a lot better about, because so this is my opinion on Jordan Mason, because I was the one of the two of us that was lower on Jordan Mason, because I thought Aaron Jones was the better running back. I thought he would still be the guy who was getting the important touches. Whether Mason was going to be in on early downs or not, I thought that Aaron Jones would get the important touches. Well, now we have Aaron Jones with a hamstring injury. And even before that, in week 1 and week 2, we saw that it was very clear designation of roles. It was Mason's going to be our early down guy, and he's going to factor in some on third down, whereas Jones is kind of just like a third down back at this point. And with Aaron Jones, who's 30 years old, suffering a soft tissue hamstring injury, you got to imagine that's going to keep him out some time. And if not, he's already banged up, and Mason maybe gets an even larger share of the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at it, Jordan Mason, obviously we know what he was able to do in relief for Christian McCaffrey last year. Now he's got the opportunity to do the same thing in relief for Aaron Jones this year. Partially here, I think the main worry that people might have is, well, JJ McCarthy hasn't really looked good. Vikings offense, how good is it going to project moving forward? However, any way you slice it, if Mason profiles into that 70-75% opportunity share back, JJ McCarthy, young quarterback, maybe he steps up his play. Of course, he's had a fantastic fourth quarter against the Bears, didn't really look up to par against Atlanta. I think when push comes to shove, you got a game against Cincinnati this week, and I think this is the get-right spot for J.J. McCarthy in the offense. If Jordan Mason is going to assume the full workload and the goal line equity, we could be talking about a top 24 running back at least until Jones gets back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think this, depending on the severity of Jones's injury, because we don't really know at this point, it's like early Monday morning. We have no idea what the severity of the injury is, but just given that he's 30 years old and it's a soft tissue injury and he's got a history of it, he's probably going to be in jeopardy of missing this game.
It's unfortunate, man. Aaron Jones' hamstring injuries, like he is like, I'm trying to think of like, who's the relatable wide receiver?
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Mike Evans. That was the name I was trying to think of. Yeah. Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, both like solid top 10, top 12 wide receiver / running back throughout their career. Always good options in fantasy, but they got the fucking bugaboo of a hammy.
Yeah, the cheese string hammy is definitely not coming through for those two guys. Kenneth Walker is the guy that I have next here, because good news is this. He's not in the plummeting video, which he would have been if he had another performance like he had in week 1.
If we did a plummeting video in week 1, he was going to be the guy that was on it. But I'll let you get the take why he's back up in the good graces, because holy, I need him to be with the Flock League ownership.
Yeah, one I have in my home league too. So 18.8 fantasy points, 105 yards rushing on 13 carries. Bad news about Kenneth Walker is that he still was out-touched and out-snapped by Zach Charbonnet in this game. He had 1 fantasy point. Zach Charbonnet turned 15 attempts into 1 fantasy point in this game. And Kenneth Walker turned 14 attempts into 18.8 fantasy points in this game. So good news again is that they play the Saints and Cardinals the next 2 weeks. And if the coaches know what's good for them, they'll probably give Kenneth Walker back his previous role, which was like 65, 70% of the touches. Because I think it's very clear to all of us that Kenneth Walker is the better running back, and Kenneth Walker should be getting the majority of the touches of these two guys. So yeah, Kenneth Walker, you love to see him get in the box score. I would say some people might be tempted to sell high on him, given that his usage wasn't great. And my counter would be that he'll probably have better usage in week 3 because he looked like the much better running back in week 2.
That's part of it too. It really truly feels like the Seahawks are going to be operating on merit. In week 1, guess what? Kenneth Walker, you weren't at camp. You were dealing with your foot injury. That's why Zach Charbonnet opened up the game. Week 2, sure, Zach Charbonnet ended up getting more touches. But as the game went along, and this was a tightly contested contest, 17-17, Steelers and Seahawks were battling. Who was out there on the consequential plays to bring that lead up to 31-17?
Kenneth Walker.
And Kenneth Walker on 13 carries. This is a tweet from Dataroma. Shout out Dataroma, great Twitter.
Great Twitter account.
And shout out Dataroma, great Twitter account. He tweeted out basically Kenneth Walker good, Zach Charbonnet not good. But then he quote tweeted it with the fact that Kenneth Walker on 13 carries, 8.1 yards per carry, 3 carries of 15 plus yards. Zach Charbonnet, 0.7 yards per carry, 10 total rushing yards on 15. Look, guys, the Seahawks want to move the ball in offense. If they see one running back drastically outplaying the other, why are we expecting the shittier running back to get the RB1 workload?
Yeah, no, it's probably not going to continue. This will be by week 7, week 8, we might be like, remember when Kenneth Walker was like the backup to Zach Charbonnet in the first 2 games of the season?
Yeah, no, and I think that's going to be coming sooner rather than later. And I said it to you. I'm like, dude, like people were going to be saying, oh, like how do you guys not have Kenneth Walker falling? You still have him at RB16? Like that's outrageous.
Well, I moved him to 21 because I was a little bit more pessimistic than you. But yeah, I was worried for sure.
Yeah. And I was worried to a degree, but I knew this type of talent, this type of Kenneth Walker was going to emerge. Hence why he was on the breakouts video coming into the year.
Yeah, for sure. So I can't believe you didn't front load this. And some people are be like, how are you guys not talking about Odunze right now? Danny literally glazes this guy with two hands on it normally. But yeah, Rome obviously has the breakout game. I will just say right off the top, it's funny that some of us, like in this video, the guys that were victory lapping are often guys that the other person didn't like. I was not sold on Odunze coming into the season. I thought that it was equally possible DJ Moore led this team in targets. I thought that, you know, the down rookie season, quote unquote, was kind of an issue for him. But yeah, I'll let you take your lap here.
So I'm going to preface this by saying another tweet from Data Roma per fantasy points data. Odunze through 2 weeks, 10th in the NFL in percentage of teams receiving yards at 40.7%. 11th in the NFL in receiving yards per game, 82.5 per game. Target share, 29.7% target share, 12th in the NFL, and he's tied for first with 3 touchdowns through 2 games. A guy that I had ranked, I believe, as my wide receiver 23 coming into the season. Through 2 weeks, Corey, he's all the way up to a wide receiver 14. And again, I'm already going to be ahead on the market as it is. I think we are seeing the true breakout of the wide receiver one there with sorry.
I'm laughing. So I'm just laughing because I think you were right before, but now you're doubling down and moving him up more. Like, I think you should just leave him where he was because you were right the first time.
So full transparency, 12 through 20 is a big tier. He's just higher in that tier for me because when I'm looking at it, man, who knows? Maybe the guys on the site might finally actually rank DJ Moore below Odunze in their rankings because that was like one of my pet peeves. But all jokes aside, man, we have officially arrived. Like I said, he's led the team in targets in the first 2 weeks, just posted his true breakout game. 23.8 points per game through the first 2 weeks. And you could make the argument that the Bears offense hasn't even taken off yet. We're looking at an offense that if it truly kicks into gear with Ben Johnson, we're talking about Odunze with an untapped ceiling. Improvement in his attention to detail has been noticeable. True 3-level threat. I mean, we saw the yak game on display yesterday. We moved extremely well. I mean, 6'3", 200 pounds, creating separation in the yak game is not something you see from an ex-wide receiver. And I mean, his ability at the catch point just simply has never left. So when I'm looking at Odunze, I truly think when it's all said and done after the season, we're talking about one of the 10 to 12 best wide receivers on earth.
Yeah, he's been really great so far. The one thing I'd push back on is the major issue for why the Bears offense hasn't been good is because they're not using Loveland or Burden and stuff. Right. So if that happens, that might factor into Odunze's target share. So even if the offense gets better, I think the target share could go down. But regardless, yeah, I mean, you got to feel good about Odunze. I mean, maybe we were just both winners in the Emeka Egbuka Odunze trade because we'll see what happens tonight with Egbuka, but I have a feeling it's going to be more of the same from what happened in week 1 against the Texans. So yeah, obviously we feel great about that. There's not much else I have to add. I figured you were going to do the Gluck 3000 on him, so I'll let you keep going. Like I said, the only thing I would say is that he was wide receiver, 35 for the market most of the time, like throughout the offseason and then coming into this week. Now he's like probably about wide receiver 20 to 24 for most of the people on the market. I think that's where he should be, where you're like, no, he's going more, even higher now. He's going 14.
Well, so he was 24 entering the year for me. He was 20 after week 1 because, again, he had a good game, 15.7, but like 37 receiving yards. I understand that, like, not moving up completely where I am now. Wide receiver 14, I think, is justified, man. 7 catches, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. He actually got schemed looks in the red zone, too, like we saw in the second touchdown. Little motion across the formation, got through traffic, ends up catching that. I mean, even on the first touchdown, for the most part, he got schemed a drag route, and he created like 20 yards after the catch. Like, if he's giving you this type of yak, man, like I said, we know what he can do deep down the field. We know what he could do at the catch point. He looks like a true 3-level wide receiver, man. I can't stress enough just the difference in player that I'm seeing with Odunze this year.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, you can absolutely make those arguments easily. My number 5 is Josh Downs. I can keep this one brief. He's not a huge riser. I think he's still kind of a guy on the rise, if that makes any sense. Yep. I moved him from wide receiver 42 to wide receiver 37. He played a brutal 52% of the routes in week 1, and everybody was kind of panicking about him. He only was up at 61% in week 2, so he's still not getting like excellent usage, but he did have 8 targets. He led the team in targets. He had 11.1 fantasy points. He looked a lot better in this game. Here's the other thing too. Number 1, Josh Downs missed a lot of time in camp with a hamstring injury. And I think that him being ramped up is part of that. Just similar to what we said with Kenneth Walker just a few minutes ago. And Danny Dimes looks great. He looks like he can throw the ball with anybody in the league right now. The Titans, Rams, Raiders, and Cardinals, do you know what they have in common? They're all worse against slot receivers than they are against outside wide receivers. So I do think we're going to start to see more games where Downs is playing more closer to Alec Pierce in terms of total routes. Targets are going to be there. If you have him, I feel comfortable starting him next week against the Tennessee Titans because they, allow funnel pass kind of over the middle. So I feel pretty good about Josh Downs. Again, do you want to be relying on him as an every week wide receiver too? No, but is he a really solid flex option going forward? I think he is.
Yeah. And with Josh Downs, the scare off of week 1 was the fact that he only ran 51% of the routes. The fact that we saw the target involvement, the game script kind of favor him this week goes to show you that, I don't know. Week 1 was just really fucking weird across the board. I feel like we got a lot more clarity in week 2 and a lot more what we could expect going forward in week 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So those were 10 players skyrocketing up our rest of season rankings. Our updated rest of season rankings are on the site, flockfantasy.com, to check that out. Use the code FSE, get yourself the season pass. You'll be covered from now all the way until the end of the NFL season. So that'll cover you rest of season rankings updates throughout the entire offseason. That'll cover you for weekly start sit rankings, so you don't have to ask us questions in live streams if you don't want to. It'll also cover you for a dynasty trade value update, chart update that is going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. As we get more information, we got to shift around those dynasty rankings, got major changes to make there. And then also everything else that we got going on the site, the trade calculator, the trade finder, the My Teams feature. We unbiasedly, I can say that those are the best tools in fantasy, because when I look at my fantasy roster, especially if you guys are sickos like us who are in multiple leagues, you get to see what your team looks like relative to the rest of your league mates. You don't have to guess who has the best tight end core in my league that I can go get a tight end core from, or a tight end trade target from. Yeah. You can just see it. You can just see who has the best tight end core. You can just see who has running back depth. You can just see who could use an extra wide receiver.
Dude, and I'm genuinely glad you mentioned that, because that's a tool that I use literally every day. I will just randomly send out offers because I'll go on flockfantasy.com. I'll kind of see who needs what. If I know, hey, I got an excess of quarterback value here, like for example, full transparency, I'll kind of let this slip. But in the Flock League, I picked up Caleb Williams, and I think the upside for him moving forward from what we've seen, especially as a rusher, could make Jaden Daniels expendable. If I know Jaden Daniels could potentially be expendable, the first thing I did was look across the league. Okay, who would actually be interested in trading for this guy? And you can see it literally sorted 1 through 12 in your league. If you notice, the number 12, the number 11, the number 10 guy at quarterback could be interested in trading for a guy that you have maybe expendable. That's the best tool that you can make, because it gets you creative. It gets those offers flowing in you. And I'll tell you right now, man, the amount of offers I've flown out just by looking at the site has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It feels so good knowing that you can quickly kind of diagnose who could use that extra wide receiver that you're trying to get off your roster, who could use the extra quarterback you're trying to get off your roster, and so on. Like I might have some tight end trades that I need to send out there because Mark Andrews kind of a floating pile of dog shit right now. So I'm going to be looking at who has the best tight end core in the Flock League and whatnot. So definitely take advantage of those tools if you guys need to make some moves. Check it out down below in the link in the pinned comment. We'll be coming at you with waiver stuff tomorrow, so don't worry. We'll cover you on that. And then trade targets and so on, plummeting kind of guys we need to panic on will be later this week. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.